This conference will now be
No,
recorded.
I don't know.
I do
I
not.
keep turning on my camera and it doesn't allow me to turn it on. I don't know why. What's going on?
That's okay. No worries.
So I'm not doing it intentionally. Okay. I did comb my
Oh,
hair
no, no,
today.
it's okay. I'm kidding. Yeah, see, you just started the whole webinar with that. Okay. All right. So the SIE, a lot of this you're going to learn is going to overlap the Series 6. The SIE is more the concepts. You did is dealing with customer accounts. The Series 6 is more about customer accounts, doing the application, what information is needed, and marketing. So, yeah, so the SIE and the Series 6, I do kind of put together to make it easier for you. All right. So with that, all right, let's roll on. Mhm. The overview. This is an exam FINRA kind of put together. It's only a couple years old. Before you only had to do the Series 6 and the Series 63. The Series 6 was a 100 question exam. And then they split it up into the SIE and the Series 6 top off. So instead of 100 questions for the Series 6, now you have to do 75 questions for the SIE and a 50 question top off for Series 6. So now they took your 100 question test, made it 125 questions, and broke it in two parts. That's all it is. Okay. So, got to be 18 years of age or older to take this a test. You can take this individually. Okay, so this is separate from the Series 6. So you can actually take the SIE, the Series 6, and 63 in any order you want. You don't have to go in order. All right, we're going to go in order. We're going to do SIE and then Series 6. And then we're going to have a little break. And then we're going to do the Series 63. The reason is the SIE and Series 6 are federal exams, and the Series 63 is a state exam. So you want to have a little bit of a break between the two because there's some conflicts. If you see exempt security on the Series 6 or the SIE, it means it's exempt from federal registration and regulation. Okay. However, if you see exempt security on the Series 63, it means it is exempt from state registration and regulation. So that's why you don't want to take them too close together because you'll have the federal mindset when you're taking the state exam, and it's going to confuse you. And you don't want to fail because of I should have put state. So all right, so understand that. Just because you pass this test doesn't mean you can start selling and soliciting securities. You still need the top off in the state 63. So this is the breakdown of the exam. You guys have probably already seen this. All right, capital markets is 16%. We're going to cover a lot of that tonight. Products is the big part. You got to understand products, right? A 45-year-old school teacher has 20,000 to invest for retirement. What would you recommend? Oh, um, you're going to learn that. What risks are associated with investments? We're going to go through that too. The third section is understanding trading customers' accounts, and prohibited activities. What to do, what not to do. And so, as you can see, the second and third piece of the exam are the biggest areas. So, you want to focus more of your studying in those areas. The overview of the regulatory framework, a lot of that stuff, including prohibited activities, a lot of it's kind of common sense. If it sounds wrong, it probably is wrong. Don't do it. Keep it that simple. Don't talk yourself out of it. The tricky part is when you get into the prohibited activities, there's going to be two right answers. One's just going to be a little more correct. And so we'll go through that understanding to make it a lot easier for you to pick the right one. You need 70%. Okay, that's a C minus. Okay. I mean, during all your years of schooling, how many of you graduated with a C minus? Most of you probably did better. So don't beat yourself up. This is a tricky test. Okay, it is not easy. It is a bit of a weed out process because if you can't pass this test, how are you supposed to explain securities and investments to the public? Okay, so there's a little rationale behind that. All right, so you're going to learn lots of definitions. A natural person is an individual human being just like you or I.
It
You
is a
need to,
time test, right?
yeah,
It is time.
um, you've got about a minute, 20 seconds per question. Okay, that's plenty of time. Okay, if you took the whole time, you probably didn't understand a lot of the concepts, and you probably parked. All right, let me explain parking. Parking means you stop. You're reading this question 4, 5, 6 times. Stop. Okay, pick your best guess. Write the question number down on the scratch sheet of paper and move on. Okay, don't park. All right. Now, again, pick your best guess. Move on. Now, when I say move on, that means move on. Don't go into the next question still thinking about, oh, what should I have picked for that last question? Because then you're not present to this new question, and you misread it because you're not here. You're still thinking over there. You see what I mean? And so you got. I don't care if you have a tough question. I mean, pick your best guess. Go to the next question. Lean back. Take a deep breath and look at it fresh. Okay. Be present. And being present, that's like sitting with a client. I use this with my clients, right? You and I having this conversation, Jeanette. Is it Jeanette, right? Janet or Jeanette? She's on
Jeanette.
mute. Okay.
Sorry,
So
Jeanette.
you and I have this conversation. There's actually three people in our conversation. There's me talking to you. There's you talking to me, and the voices in your head said, "Hey, why did he just pick me out of this crowd? Right? What's this going to do for me? Right?" Now, those are what we call your inner voices. And sometimes your inner voices get so loud, you don't hear me anymore. Okay. And so you have to drop that, especially when you're with a customer. Okay. Because if I'm sitting with a customer trying to sell a policy and my mind's elsewhere, I'm asking a question, you're answering it, and then I'm going to ask it again. I'm not present to this conversation. And so with this test, you got to be present to this question. Again, if you need to take a lean back, take a deep cleansing breath, and then take another look at it to start fresh, do it. Okay, understand that. But you got to be present to the question. So a natural person is an individual human being. A person is any legal entity. All right, so a person is natural person, right? Corporation, business trust, partnership, association, LLC. Any one of those is a person. So a natural person is an individual human being. A person is any legal entity. So a natural person is a person, but a person is not necessarily a natural person. You got that? Poodles are dogs, but not all dogs are poodles. You got labradoodles, right? You see what I mean? So natural person is like a sub-classification of the definition of person, and you got to keep them separate. Issuer is the entity that's selling securities to raise capital to expand their operations. So anyone is the issuer, which would be the corporation, government, or government subdivision that is selling securities to raise capital. That's the issuer. If you are not that entity, you are a non-issuer. It's that easy. The issuer is the company that's selling securities to raise money to expand their operations. A non-issuer is anyone who is not the issuer. Is that simple? Yeah, it is. But when you take the test, you're like stressed, like, oh, a non-issuer transaction, isolated non-issuer transaction, issuer transaction, what that, they look similar. But the biggest thing is get that down. If it's an issuer transaction, the issuer is financially affected. If it's a non-issuer transaction, that's anyone who is not the issuer. So a broker dealer is a non-issuer. Investment bankers are non-issuer. You as registered reps are non-issuers because you're not the ABC company that's selling securities. Okay. I mean, it seems that simple here, but we got to lay the foundation because all of this is going to filter in as we start going through questions and move further along. Stocks is evidence of ownership in a company or government entity. Okay. So stocks is ownership. You're buying a piece of a company, and if that company makes a profit, you get some of that. Right? So they can either pay dividends, right, which is a return on investment, or the value of the share may appreciate or grow. And you can sell it at higher than when you bought, and there's the gain. Bonds are loanership, evidence of debt or obligation. So you're actually lending a company your money. All right, the company's going to use your money where they're going to pay you semi-annual interest, and when the bond matures, we give you your money back. So stocks are ownership, bonds are loanership. Okay, there's two ways of raising capital. That's how you want it. So anytime you see debt obligation or obligation, that's a bond. Anytime you see evidence of ownership, that's a stock. Okay. Again, it seems kind of simple at this point in time, but I gotta lay the foundation for what we do as we move forward. IPO, initial public offering. This is where a company goes public for the very, very first time. Okay. So, maybe you created a widget. It's a pretty cool widget. All your friends like it and they buy it. In fact, you go through all your money, right? Your friends lend you money. You exhaust your bank account. So, then you get a business loan and you grow your business. Then you get some sophisticated investors to buy into your, widget manufacturing operation, to where pretty soon you need more money. And so then you go public. A company can only have typically one IPO. You can only go public once. And that's where you're selling usually common stock. When a company goes public for the first time, they're selling common stock. We'll get into that. But let's say you raise capital, you go public, you have an IPO, and 5 years later, you need to raise more money. And so you want to sell more securities. Well, this is called a primary offering. Okay. So an IPO is when you go public for the very first time. Anytime you sell more securities after that, another offering, that's called a primary offering. All right. You can have multiple primary offerings, but you typically only have one IPO. All right. Make sense? All right. See, these are some publicly traded companies, huh? Yeah, you probably recognize some of them. I know it's like Prime Day, right? Isn't it? Today's last day for Prime Day? Oh, man, I better go do some shopping when I get home. All right, so but these are publicly traded companies, okay? And so these are issuers. There's companies that are selling securities to raise funds to expand their operation. That's how you need to. So if you are not one of these entities, you're a non-issuer. How easy is that? Come on. You're going to pass this test. You know you are. All right, Maria? All right. All right, regulatory entities, agencies, and market participants. So we're going to kind of get into some of the federal acts, kind of what builds, the foundation of security. So we have the SEC, and that's the entity. It's the regulatory authority that oversees the securities industry. We're going to talk about a self-regulatory organization, or SRO. And you might not see it spelled out. You might just see SRO. Okay, so understand that. Self-regulatory organization. If you watch crime drama, maybe action movies where there's a police department, and you have a police department and they have a division of police officers that are investigating other police officers, which is called internal affairs. You guys watch movies where they have that, right? So you have a police department and you have a division called internal affairs, which are police officers regulating and investigating those other police officers. That's an SRO. Okay. So SEC is like the main entity, and then FINRA is the SRO that regulates you folks transacting securities. Okay. So they regulate themselves. That's basically how you want to understand it. I mean, there's other regulations and agencies we'll get into, and we're definitely going to talk about market participants. But get that, that SEC is like dad, FINRA is like the son. Okay. So, yeah. So we'll go into the SEC, right? It's a government oversight agency responsible for regulating the securities markets and protecting investors. You need to know that there are 5 commissioners. Right? They're appointed by the president with advice and consent from the Senate. You also need to know that if you're appointed as a commissioner, it's a 5-year program. It means if you're a commissioner of the SEC, you can't have another job. You can volunteer to coach your kids' softball team or kids' gymnastics, but you can't have another job. This is your life for 5 years or until you get replaced. Right? Out of the 5, no more than 3 can be of any one political party. No more than 3. So it's got to be evenly distributed. And so this second paragraph right here, this bullet, this is the one you want to know. Promote nonpartisanship, right? No more than 3 of the 5 can be the same political party. They're appointed by the president with advice from the Senate, okay, because they have to get approved. It was established as part of the Securities Act in 1933, all right, and then kind of set up by the Act of 34. So there's a little bit more here, not that big of a deal, but this paragraph is the one you really want to get down, okay, and we'll go into this again. There's 5 divisions, 24 offices. I don't think you've got a question on how many divisions or what the divisions are, huh? Man, did you know that there's 24 offices? I know, me either, because that's not on the test. This is the stuff that your publisher, that your STC book you're reading, right, Samuel? This is what you're learning that it's useless information and not on the test. I had to throw this in there just to kind of point stuff out. So I don't go through this stuff. So I weed out stuff you don't need to know. Okay. All right. So the SEC and FINRA, which used to be NASD, so it's called FINRA now, National Association of Securities Dealers. That's what it was originally called, but now they've changed the name to FINRA, Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. You might still see NASD on the test. Okay. So don't get confused. It's the same as FINRA. It's the SRO that regulates you folks, helping you get licensed, overseeing what you do, and imposing fines and penalties if you violate any of the laws, okay, the code. Okay, so that's what this second bullet is, right? FINRA handles licensing. It's a not-for-profit, but you guys missed out a couple years ago because apparently some of people at FINRA are making 7 digits a year in income. How's that? Supposed to be nonprofit, but they're making seven digits a year. Yeah, the public got upset at that. So I'm rambling. All right. This is SEC is a government organization that is meant to protect investors, and the SEC oversees everything FINRA does. So remember, SEC's dad, FINRA is like the son. So if the son regulates you folks, dad can oversee and change what the son said. But dad has someone overseeing him also if you do something wrong. It's called the federal courts, because they can overturn SEC decisions. Okay, so you got to know the Act of 33. This is the paper act. So 33 is paper. Right? It regulates new issues. It prevents fraud in the industry. A lot of the stuff that you're learning as far as penalties and what you can and can't do is for the general population. Institutional investors, big corporations, they kind of regulate themselves. I mean, if you're the CEO of a company, and you're like, I don't know, 20 billion, strong, you're a very solid, large company, these rules and regulations don't really bother you because you have your own attorneys and accountants to tell you what you should and should not do. And so all the regulations you're learning on this test are to protect a new investor that doesn't know enough about investing and how much risk they can take and what risks are associated with the investment products that they're considering getting into. Okay, they're getting into it because their friend told them, you should do this. Okay, so yeah, but that's what the Act of 33 is all about: regulating new issues. Okay, new issues. New issues must register with the SEC. All right. There's a filing date, and that's a date you fill out your registration statement. You know what the registration statement is? It's like an application, just like you folks filling out a U4 to be able to take your securities exam. It's an online electronic application, where you've been living the past 5 years, where you've been working the past 10 years, any misdemeanors or felonies ever, right? It's an application. Well, guess what? Registration statement is the same thing. It's an application you're filing to get approval to sell your securities to the public and raise capital. All right. When you do submit that registration statement, there's a 20-day cooling off period. All right. This gives the SEC some time to review your registration statement, do their background check to make sure it's all on the up and up. All right. The registration statement, that application has to describe the business, right? Remember, you got this widget company, right? You manufacture widgets, do whatever they do. We need to know who the shareholders are. the officers, directors of the companies. We also want to know about their background, because if they have a criminal background, this might be a little bit suspect. So biographical data, what are you going to do with the money? All right, first of all, your balance sheet income statements of how you're, built now, but also what are you going to do with the money that you're raising? You can't just pay bonuses and go retire. Okay, so the SEC wants to know, what are you going to do with the money? And how are you going to expand your operations? Because this is stuff that has to go out to the public, because they need to know this and choose whether or not they want to invest in your company. Prospectus is also generated. Now, during this time where we initially issue this registration statement, you cannot solicit securities at all. Okay. But during this 20-day cooling off period, during the end of the 20-day cooling off period, you're going to post what's called a tombstone ad. Right? It's kind of an ad you take in a financial news saying, this is the company, right? This is what we're offering. We're going to, raise money to, or actually sell common stock. We're going to raise some funds. This is the underwriting method that we're using. This is what we're going to do with the proceeds. Here's the selling syndicates and selling groups if you want more information. And that's in the tombstone ad. So if someone calls up on that tombstone ad wanting a little more information, we're going to send them what's called a red herring prospectus. It's an incomplete prospectus. It's easy to spot. It's like a prospectus with a red border around the front cover. Okay. But since the security has not been approved yet, you can't solicit. Now, people may call up and say, hey, I'd like to place an order. You can take orders, but you cannot solicit. You cannot encourage them to buy more. What? You're only buying 2 round lots? No, come on. This is going to be hot. You got to buy more. See, now I'm soliciting, and that's illegal. Until the security is approved, you cannot solicit securities. Cannot solicit this. Okay. So again, we send out at the end of the 20-day cooling off period, or near the end of it. Remember, we post a tombstone ad. If you call up, we give you a red herring prospectus. When it's approved, right, towards the end of that 20-day cooling off period, we have a due diligence meeting. Okay. And what we do is the issuer, and we'll talk about investment banker, right, that's helping issue this. They're going to go through the prospectus and the registration statement with a fine-tooth comb, and they're going to print out what's called statements of additional information. And they're going to be added to the completed prospectus. Right? And that's what that's about. So the final prospectus must be delivered to customers within 25 days of the effective date of when the security may be sold to the public. For over-the-counter securities that are not listed, sometimes you'll see it as unlisted securities. Right? They got to be given within 90 days of the effective date of an IPO. Or if it's a primary offering, typically within 40 days of being approved for the primary offering. And so you want to know this timeline. Keep it simple. Day one, we file a registration statement. Right? There's a 20-day cooling off period. Post a tombstone ad. Anyone calls up, we give them a red herring prospectus. We have a due diligence meeting at the end of the 20-day cooling off period. Right? Make sure we make corrections, print them up, and add them to the final prospectus. Day 30th, right? Unless there's an issue where the SEC puts a stop order or says, hey, we need more information, on noon of day 30th, you can sell the securities. If you buy the securities on that 30th day, within 25 days, we got to give you a final copy of the prospectus. Okay, so basically from day 1 to day 55, that's kind of the turnaround time of registering, and the customer has a final prospectus in their hand. But typically it takes on noon of the 30th day, unless the SEC says you're not going to be able to sell it, they put a stop order, then you should, noon on the 30th day, it can be sold. Okay, so kind of like your U4, right? As a registered rep, you submit your U4. Unless there's an issue on noon of the 30th day, you can go take your test and move forward. Okay, broker dealers is noon on the 45th day for broker dealer registrations. All right. Now, not all securities have to register, and these are exempt securities. Exempt means exempt from registration. So we're going to go into a little additional terminology. Exempt means exempt from registration. If you see excluded, it means excluded from a definition. Okay, so you got to watch the terminology. Exempt is associated with exempt from registration. Excluded means excluded from a definition. All right, so we'll get into that. All right, so government issues are not regulated by the SEC because they're regulated by the governmental agency that's offering them. Municipal securities are regulated by the municipality that's offering them. Right? Yeah, you can only have one boss. Okay, so if you already have an entity that's regulating you, you don't need approval from the SEC. Nonprofit organizations are regulated by the IRS. Commercial paper, that's just a kind of a letter of credit between two entities. Okay, and if it's no more than 270 days and no more than 50,000, doesn't need to be registered. Issues of domestic banks and trust companies. You know, when you sat down and set up a savings account with a bank, did you have to fill out a risk tolerance form with the SEC? No. Okay, because that savings account is a fixed product that's regulated by the bank. Issues of small business investment companies you don't need to worry about. Now, even though they're exempt from registering with the SEC, they still have to follow the anti-fraud provisions of the Act of 33. So the 33 prevents fraud in the industry. Now, some exempt offerings I want to discuss. The first one is a private placement. If it's private, then it's not publicly advertised. Okay, so it doesn't need to register with the SEC because it's not public. And we'll get into that. Interstate offerings. Well, remember, if it's federal, it's interstate. So if you're transacting business across state lines, that becomes federal because federal is interstate commerce. But if you're only selling in one state, that's an intrastate offering, and you're exempt from the SEC registration because SEC is feds. Think of multiple states. And some issues are so small that the SEC doesn't care. Here and there, you'll see terminology. It's Latin called de minimis exception rule. Right? It's kind of illegal, but it's such a small thing, they don't really care. All right. So for private placements, number one, you have to be a sophisticated investor. That means you got to meet the definition of a sophisticated investor. You're investing a minimum $1 million in the marketplace. That means you have a net worth of at least 1.5 million. Right? Then you're classified as a sophisticated investor, and you can buy into some of these, private placements. Instead of a prospectus, it's going to be an offering memorandum. Sometimes this is called letter stock because when you purchase this type of stock, you're going to sign a letter saying you will not sell it to anyone out in the public, and you are not going to advertise to the public if you want to sell it to them. Because if you advertise, this is not a private placement anymore. So they lose the exemption. Guess what? Now they have to register the security to get approval. All right. So in order to get in on the private placement, typically you're a sophisticated investor. We cannot notify more than 35 non-accredited investors. An accredited investor has a net worth at least 1 million. As an individual, you made at least 200,000 in each of the past 2 years. For married couples, it's 300,000 in each of the past 2 years. And again, you cannot advertise because if you advertise, it's not private anymore. Okay. Like those people posting stuff on social media. That's not private anymore. All right. Is that just me? All right. Intrastate offering. All right. Again, you're not transacting business across state lines. You're only in one state. And so you've got to meet guidelines. 80% of the revenues must be from operations in the state. 80% of the assets must be held in this state. 80% of the proceeds must be used to expand in this state, and every one of the purchasers must be a resident of this state. And if you can meet those guidelines, then you can basically set up as an intrastate offering, and you don't have to file with the SEC. Now, just to give you a heads up, these exempt offerings, they're just not automatically exempt. You still want to notify the SEC of what you're doing. All right. The reason we're doing this and how we're doing it is because it's an exempt security. So it's more of a notification, but it's not an approval. Okay, let me explain. You don't just get the exemption. You still want to notify the SEC that you're applying as an exemption. Okay, does that make sense? All right, you still need to let them know. Now, there's this one and a small issue. If you're raising less than 5 million in a 12-month period, it's again, instead of a prospectus, it's an offering statement. I'm sorry, it's offering circular instead of a prospectus. Instead of a registration statement, it's an offering statement with the SEC. You're just notifying them that you're only raising 5 million within a 12-month period. Okay. These are the main exemptions from the SEC registration. There are other ones. The SEC has a book to where even though it's not one of these three, they have a book of exemptions that you could qualify for, but you have to apply for the exemption. Okay. It's not that it's applying for approval, just applying to qualify and make sure you qualify as or for an exemption, if that makes sense. Okay. So if the Act of 33 is the paper that you're going to be selling and regulating the industry, well, now we got to regulate the people that are in the industry. So the Act of 34 is the People Act. Okay. And so it regulates the exchanges, which are run by people. It regulates trading on the secondary market by people. It regulates broker dealers who are people. Okay. And reviews FINRA disciplinary actions because people did things they're not supposed to be doing. Okay. So 33 paper comes before 34 people. You can look at it alphabetically. PA comes before PE, right? So paper before people. You need to know that. Little things like that could help you answer a question. If you want to set up an exchange, you can. There's a process. Right? You do got to get approval. Everything you do has to be in writing. All the procedures are in writing. Okay. Well, now it's electronic, but someone had to type it. But yeah, you can set up your own. Make sure you have regulation and everything. But you can set up your own national securities exchange. So market terminology, let's go into this. A New York Stock Exchange member is an individual who actually owns a seat on the exchange. And way, way back in the 1800s, you actually bought a chair. You bought a seat, literally. It was a chair, like in the background, Sammy. All right, so okay. And so if you owned a chair, you could actually transact on the stock market floor, the New York Stock Exchange. How cool is that? Only New York Stock Exchanges were, New York Stock Exchange members were permitted to trade on the floor. And you fall into one of four categories. Most common is a commission or house broker. They're representing a firm, doing trading for the firm. Right? A $2 broker. So if you're a commission house broker and you have more trades than you can handle, you might want to hire a $2 broker. You're going to pay them a commission to help you place your trades. Right? So when it's busy, you're going to call some people over to say, hey, help me. This is what I need to do. And they'll help you place trades and you're going to pay them a commission. You're competing with each other, but you're also competing with registered competitive traders who trade out of their own personal account or business account. If they do have a customer, they actually have to place their customer's trade before they place their own business trade. Okay. And then there's a specialist. There's lots of specialists, but when you hear of a specialist, these are the people that are helping the market move smoothly. They're helping people buy that need to buy. They're helping people sell that need to sell, and they're keeping the market moving smoothly. Okay. You guys ever go to a 3-ring circus, right? You remember the old circus, right? They had the 3 different rings, and then you had the ringmaster. And the ringmaster says, hey, everybody check out these elephants trying to jump. That's just funny. Okay. And then everyone looked and said, all right, let's look over here. Let's look at these dogs jumping through these burning hoops. And then you look over here. And when you looked over here, they had the elephants move off and they had the next show come up. And so the ringlet master just kind of helped the flow of the circus move. And that's how you want to know the specialist. Okay, so they're helping the market run smoothly for listed securities. Anytime you see listed securities, it means listed on an exchange. Now, it is prestigious for your company to be listed on an exchange because it provides a fair and orderly marketplace for people to buy and sell your securities. All right, that's what that's about. And so a specialist is what we call a market maker for listed securities, but you're also going to hear a market maker, and it's the same thing as a specialist, but it's for unlisted securities. Now, unlisted doesn't mean it's a bad security. It just means it hasn't been around long, or it's not a large enough company to be listed on an exchange. Okay. And so that's what that's about. We call it the unlisted or the over-the-counter market. And so a specialist deals with listed securities. Market maker deals with unlisted securities. Keep the terminology pretty separate and pretty distinct. Okay. where the four markets for secondary transactions. Now, let me back this up a bit. So I want to explain. So let's say back when you had probably back when you bought DVDs. Okay, this is before everything was streaming. You let's say you go to Best Buy, you bought a DVD. Okay, once you broke the plastic on that DVD, you couldn't take it back to Best Buy. Okay, you had to go to GameStop and trade it for something else. Okay, well, that's kind of how the marketplace works. So in an IPO or a primary offering, that's where stocks are sold for the very first time. And once you buy it from that IPO or primary market, that stock or that investment will never, never, never go back to the primary market. All right, once you buy it from the primary market, it now is traded in the secondary market. All right, and this is where you're buying or selling used securities, used stock. And so the biggest one we just talked about is the exchange market. That's where it's an exchange listed security. Again, it's prestigious to be listed. And then we have the unlisted, which is also called the over the counter market. And this is the stuff that people generally would buy and sell stocks or bonds, all right, closed end funds and things like that. Now, the third and fourth market, you may get a question on it, but it's not what this license, or I should say this registration, is about. Okay, this is institutional transactions, doing big block trading. The third market is negotiated markets with listed securities. That means imagine buying. How much is Google trading at right now? Anybody know? No, I don't know either. I didn't look. Let's just pluck a number. $600 a share. I think they're doing a split soon. ABC company, right? The parent company, they're doing a split. So let's say they're $600 a share. Okay. A large block transfer would be you're buying 8,000 round lots of ABC Corp. Okay. So let's see. A round lot is 100 shares. So it's $600 times 100 shares, right? Times 8,000 round lots. Did I say that? 8,000? Right? That's kind of a big transfer trade for us, isn't it? That's a lot of money, isn't it? That still doesn't quite qualify for a third market institutional transaction. Okay, so you're thinking this is a large trade. So this is more between the corporations, okay, versus individuals. Right? And so we don't deal too much with that marketplace. Right? Like I said, they have their own attorneys, they have their own accountants, they know what to buy, when to buy, what to sell, and when to sell. Okay, so we're not going to deal too much with that. You may get a question about the fourth market, which is buying and selling listed, unlisted securities on an electronic system called Instinet. That you might get a question on. I don't know if you got that one, Maria. Does that one sound familiar? No? Okay. Yeah, the third and fourth market we don't deal too much with. Okay. All right. So we talk about listed securities. Think of the listed market. That would be like a New York Stock Exchange, okay, or the American Stock Exchange. So you're listed on an exchange and it's prestigious. But we do have the over-the-counter market, which is like NASDAQ, National Association of Securities Dealers Automated Quotation System. This is where we track unlisted securities or over-the-counter. It is the largest securities market. Now, when you hear a securities market, it's a location or system. So the New York Stock Exchange is a physical location. You can actually go there. NASDAQ is a system. It's all electronic. So there's really no NASDAQ trading floor. It's all done by computers. Okay, and that's how you need to understand it. So way back in the day, let's say we're back in the 50s. All right, so let's say we're all brokers, right? We're representing some customers. I'm in California. All right, Maria's over in Florida. All right, Sammy's over in New York. All right, Luz, you're over in Colorado. And I get a customer that wants to buy 5 round lots of Disney. Well, I don't have any customers that want to sell 5 round lots of Disney. And so I pick up the phone and I got to call you. I got to say, hey, who's got 5 round lots of Disney that they want to sell? All right, and so Luz says, hey, I got a customer that's willing to sell. Great. What's he want to sell it at? Okay. And then you give me the price. So I go back. I got to hang up. I got to call my client. Hey, I found a client that wants to sell the 5 round lots of Disney. This is what they're asking for. And the customer says, I'll take it. And so now I got to call you back, Luz. I say, hey, my client will take the 5 round lots, blah, blah, blah. Okay. That's what it used to be like. And so they moved it to the computer since computer came around. And so you have access to a computer as a broker dealer, you can see what's going on. And so there's 3 levels that you do need to be aware of. This is a common test question. Level 1 gives you the highest bid and the lowest ask price on any given securities. And so you can see, what am I willing to pay for a security? What am I willing to sell a security? Okay, so you get the big swings. Okay, that's going to be level 1. Level 2 is the current price. That's what it's trading at right now. Level 3, if you have that as a market maker, that's where you input your quotes. You input that my client wants to sell, 2 round lots of Starbucks. Well, my client wants to buy 5 round lots of Disney, and this is the price that they're willing to ask or they're willing to take. And so they put in their quotes. But level 3 also is where they can go back in and they can change the pricing. I'm willing to drop my price because I need liquidity. Okay, so you need to know what the 3 levels equate to. So level 1 shows you the swing. Level 2 is the current price. Level 3 is the input period. Okay, does that make sense? You guys hanging in there okay? Kind of, sort of. I know it's not exciting, is it? Not till you get into products, then it gets pretty exciting. So, NASD, let's go more into FINRA. Formed in 1939 because of the Maloney Act of 1938. Incorporated as a non-stock corporation called Investment Bankers Conference, Inc. Woo! That's what it was originally called. And now it's FINRA. Okay. The third bullet, put a star. This is a common test question. I don't know why, but they originally incorporated in the Secretary of State in the state of Delaware. So no, Delaware 1936. All right. Common test question. Why? I don't know. It doesn't help me sell securities knowing that. All right, but that's a test question. So SEC reviews what FINRA does. So FINRA may do some investigation, impose fines and penalties. If it's appealed, it can go up to the SEC, and then it could get appealed again, go to the federal courts. All right. So the FINRA is an SRO, self-regulatory organization, and there's other ones. Not so important. You might get Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board or MSRB. It's an SRO. Which of the following is an example of an SRO? And they'll give you a bunch of acronyms, so you kind of want to know that. Okay. Like I said, it's known as FINRA, Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. We have rules and regulations, which we call bylaws. Now, you folks have taken the insurance exam, and so you know what code and ethics are about. Code is insurance laws. Ethics is just rules of conduct. If it sounds wrong, probably is wrong, don't do it. Okay. Well, guess what? We have the practice code, which is more the law. We have rules of fair practice, which is ethical behavior. If you violate that, we can go through a court of procedure, which is the appeal process, or we can resolve it through arbitration. Now, disputes between members and you and your firms has to go through arbitration. Your customer has choice. They can resolve a dispute with you or your firm through arbitration, or they can choose to go through the code of procedure, which is the courts and the appeal process. And we'll get into that a little bit later. For FINRA members, there's a membership fee, right? You had to submit an application and pay a fee. That means every renewal, you got to pay another fee. Your broker dealer has to pay a fee. Your principal branch or your principal office has to pay a fee, even a fee for a branch office. The principal office and the branch office aren't necessarily the same thing. Okay. And there's also an assessment for gross income for broker dealers. Right. So yeah, I mean, they got to make money. They need money to get paid to investigate people doing things wrong. So principal versus broker. This is where we start diving more into the weeds. You'll see dealer or principal, and it's interchangeable. It's called a dealer because you're buying up a lot of a security, and it's called making a market. Now, a dealer, you buy inventory. That means if you get a customer, you're going to have the customer trade out of your inventory. As a dealer, you get paid by the markup or spread. Okay, so if the price, if you own a lot of inventory of securities and the demand is high, you can raise your price. All right, that's the markup. All right. The problem with that is, as a dealer, since you're buying investments, if the market tumbles, you're directly affected because you bought inventory, you bought securities. And if the market drops, the value of your investment has dropped, the value of your portfolio. So a broker is also interchangeable with agency. You're not buying securities. Customer sets up an account and you trade out of the customer's account. You charge a commission or a fee for trading their account. So if the market tumbles, doesn't affect you. You just may not do as many trades and get paid as much, right? Um, but you don't have skin in the game. The dealer, in a sense, has skin in the game. They're financially affected. Okay. You need to know the difference. So the classification is a broker dealer because you can do both. Okay. Um, that means if a customer wants to purchase securities, they might have to pay a commission to have you, help them purchase the securities. But the problem is you're buying it from the dealer who has a markup. So not only do you have to pay your commission, you got to pay the dealer's markup to purchase the securities. Okay. As long as you give full disclosure and the customer is willing to pay it, no problem. But if you don't tell the customer there's increased costs in purchasing the securities, then you got problems. Right? Always be open with fees and the cost. Right? Just like insurance, right? You don't. There's no hidden costs. Everything's got to be disclosed. The mortality factor, the expense factor, the admin charge. Okay, it's all got to be disclosed. Same thing in securities. Okay, and if it's priced higher, if they agree to it, then great, they buy it. But let them know. All right. The security is an investment in an enterprise for profit with another company performing the management. So you're buying money in a company with other people running it. Hopefully they do a good job and the company does well and makes more money and then you get a return on your investment. That would be kind of nice, right? Doesn't always work out. Okay. You got to understand the definition of what an investment contract is. So we talked about what is a security, but now we got to talk about an investment contract. It's an investment contract that states that a security or an investment contract exists when a person invests in a common enterprise and expects a return from the efforts of that third party. So there's an expectation of a gain. That's what an investment contract is versus just an investment. All right. Now, I kind of put this here, statutory disqualification. There are some reasons where you apply to get your registration, your securities registration to transact securities, and they deny it. All right. So misdemeanors or felonies, fined or suspended, business reputation, thing like that. A lot of it's pretty straightforward. That's why you're going to get denied. Okay. So, but you guys are here. New York Life has a really good screening system. So if they pass you, you're pretty much on the road to getting your securities registration. Okay. And remember, it's a securities registration, not a securities license. Although I still make the mistake because in the real world, we call it a securities license. The test is called a securities registration. So that means if you're an issuer and you're applying to sell your securities to the public, you're filling out a registration statement. You're registering to get approval to sell your securities to the public. Just like you folks, you are registering to be approved to transact or sell securities to the public. So it's a registration, not a license. Okay. And even though the SEC regulates the industry and FINRA regulates us, we cannot say that we are approved by SEC or FINRA. Oh, you can't say things like, oh, you should buy this security because it's approved by the SEC. That's misleading. The SEC and FINRA, they review everything, they approve nothing. So just going to someone, oh, you should work with me, man. I got approved by FINRA. No, you didn't get approved. I mean, they asked for information, you complied, and they're saying, okay, we'll let you do business. They're not even saying that you're a good person. Well, they kind of are because they let you do business, right? But they're not saying that you're the one to go to, that you're approved, and you get these 5 stars somewhere. That's not what it's about. You can say a member of FINRA, but don't say approved. All right. As far as FINRA bylaws, it typically oversees personnel and principals. So you folks are going to be personnel, and you have a supervisory principal that oversees your transactions. That means if you get a customer to fill out a new account application, it's going to go to a supervisory principal who's going to review everything you've done. That application's got to have your signature, it's going to have the principal's signature, and then it's passed on to the broker-dealer for processing. I didn't say it needed customer signature. This is the tricky part. If you actually look at a sample new account application, there's a signature for the customer, the registered rep, and the supervisory principal. But on the exam, you only need the registered rep and supervisory principal signature. Okay, and so don't get distraught on that. On my website, when you log in, I do have a sample application. I want you to go in there and look at it. All right. If you want, I'm going to email it to you guys because I really want you to take a look at the application and I want you to fill it out as if you're setting up a new account. The reason is that's going to help you with 2, maybe 3 of the questions on your test. What information is required to be gathered on a new account application? You need to know. All right. So the best way for you to know is to fill out the application to know what information you should provide. Okay. So do the due diligence, take your time and energy, right? And do things like that. Okay. All right. So you and your supervisory principal have to pass an exam. You guys are working on yours. The people that are sponsoring you to take this test, they've already passed their test. They passed a Series 26 securities registration. That's a supervisory principal overseeing Series 6 representatives. Now, the stockbroker's exam is a Series 7 test. That's mutual funds and more stocks and bonds, and they definitely have a lot more options questions than you guys do. And there's a Series 24, which is the supervisory principal that oversees Series 7 representatives. Okay, so there's different types of principal exams. So if you're in a management position, which if you guys move up to be, what do they call it, partner with New York Life, right? Then you have to pass your supervisory principal exam. Okay, so disqualifications, again, if you've been suspended or expelled from a national securities exchange, right, then yeah, you're going to get denied. Barred or suspended for conduct inconsistent, enjoined from a court and engaging in securities business, you made false or misleading statements on your application, they can disqualify you right from the get-go. It's better to give full disclosure if you did something wrong in the past, like you looked at a police officer the wrong way and they issued a citation, or you got caught stealing gum as a kid at 7-Eleven. You want to put that on your application. It's better to give them more information, let them figure out what to do with it versus you don't disclose it. They find out about it. Now it's going to be concealment. Okay. But if you've been convicted of a misdemeanor or felony in the past 10 years, you are statutorily disqualified according to the test. It's 10 years for the test, but on the application, it does say, have you ever committed a felony? Okay, so know the difference there. Membership, all applications must be properly signed by you, electronic signature. It's called your U4 application. It's submitted electronically. Your supervisory principal does have a copy of it. It contains an agreement to adhere to all securities laws. Again, you got to pay dues. I don't know if New York Life is paying that for you, but that's a plus if they do. And keep your member applications current. That means if you change jobs or you pick up a side job where you're earning income and it's different than the information you put on your U4 application, then you need to notify your supervisor or principal that there's a change. Right? Address change, employment change, whatever else. Maybe you set up another security account with a discount brokerage and you want to do some trading on your own. You need to disclose that, all right, so they can monitor your actions, because maybe you're getting some private information and taking advantage of it. Okay, so it's a highly regulated industry, but all you got to do is if you follow the steps and give full disclosure, you're fine. Okay. You cannot permit anyone to engage in the securities or investment banking practice unless they have proper qualifications. Okay, that means let's see. We had a supervisor with a company actually got terminated because they were overseeing securities transactions, and they brought their daughter in the office to help them oversee securities transactions. Well, the daughter had a felony. And in the investigation, it was found out we have a felon that's not securities licensed dealing with securities transactions. And so they got terminated. I mean, flat out, you got to watch who you're with and who's working with you, I should say. Okay? So simple things like that. Registered rep may voluntarily resign at any time. So let's say, this ain't for me. Okay, great. You resign. It'll take 30 days to process. However, you're still on the hook for 1 year. Okay, so even though you resign, they can still come after you for up to 1 year because of something you did when you were registered. Okay, all right. You have a question, Luz? No? Oh, you just raise your hand on the screen? Is that just me? All right, cool, cool, cool. Disciplinary proceedings. If you do something wrong, well, then great. Charges will be brought against you. You will have an opportunity to defend yourself. We got to keep records. What did you do? What was the rule you violated? The findings and any penalties that were imposed. And you're now going to have to disclose it on your U4 with any place else that you go work in the broker dealer or the securities industry. Okay. In some cases, you can request expungement. That's kind of one of the newer things. You can get expunged, have them expunge some information. You keep just raising your hand. Did you have a question, or I cannot hear her? She's just putting the reaction button. She's just playing around. Your volume's on. Are you on mute, or can you guys hear her?
It looks like she's talking though. She's
Yeah.
you just
On the
the
screen, she's raising her hand, so I'm wondering if she has a question. So I'll lower the hand. All right. Maybe go into the chat if you can, if you have a question. Okay. All right. Cool, cool. Yeah. So if you do something wrong, yeah, you've got to disclose it anywhere you go. If you leave where you're at and go to another broker dealer, you have to give up that information. Okay. The board may impose appropriate sanctions, censure. You can do something so bad that you could actually be expelled from the securities industry, and you cannot even have a janitorial position in a building that has a trading floor. How severe is that? Okay, that's how bad it can be. So conduct rules, member firms are required to supervise their personnel. Everything's got to be in writing. All right. You designate an OSJ, that's Office of Supervisory Jurisdiction. That's who I guess, your new accounts application will go to. They pass the principal exam. Okay. And again, I said earlier, the branch office is not necessarily an OSJ. Usually the principal office is an OSJ. If you have a separate individual office someplace else, that's a branch office. So it's going to be a little bit different there. Okay. Jumping to a different registration, we have investment advisors. These are fee-based consultants. All right, they're going to review your situation. They're going to say, these are the securities you might want to get into. This is the holding period of what you want to get into. Pay me a fee based on this written agreement, and I'm kind of done. And so it's a fee-based consultant. And that's how you want to know. They pass a different exam. It's a Series 65, the investment advisors exam. All right. And so if you are going to do fee-based consulting about securities, you got to be registered. Right? And so excluded from registration, remember, excluded from registration or excluded from a definition, exempt from registration. Okay, so excluded from a definition, exempt from registration. Watch the terminology. If all your clients are in a state where you maintain your principal office and you do not furnish advice, well, then you don't need to register. So you folks, when you get this registration, you are going to gather some information and you're going to give a recommendation. You just can't charge extra for it. Okay? You get paid a commission when you place the transaction. Can't charge additional compensation like a fee. If you had your Series 65 registration and you have a written agreement, you could. Okay? If all of your clients are insurance companies, that means you're not dealing with the public, so you don't need to register. If you have no more than 15 clients in the past 12 months in another state, this is where they fail to disclose in your textbooks. If you're registered in California and you have no more than 15 customers in another state in the past 12 months, you don't have to register in the other state. Okay, that's what they're talking about. The test question words it as you don't have a principal place of business in the state. Okay, or if you're a charitable organization and you're just giving advice for the charitable organization, then you don't need to register. Okay. Application for registration, just like your U4, must give what organization you're going to be representing, or if you're creating your own, because as an investment advisor, you can set up your own firm. The states in which you're going to be doing business in, information about partners and directors of your investment advisory organization. Again, a 10-year history, name of the business, accounting records, and there's a bunch of other stuff, but you also have to show a copy of your investment advisory contract. It needs to be approved. All right. Exempt from registration. If you're only doing admin, don't need to register. Okay. So as long as you're not dealing with the public and talking investments. All right. And this is common, right, for the test. If we just, some broker deal, we just need a manager to manage people, but they don't deal with the public, they don't need to register. So that's kind of a nutshell what we're going to start with. I just want to get the people. We dabbled a little bit on stocks, but next week we are going to dive heavily into products. Okay. So
Is it
how
going to
are
be a
we?
webinar?
Yeah, every Wednesday night it'll be a webinar, and then we have a live class on August 12th, and
August
that's a
12th.
full
Okay.
day
And
live class.
okay, when are we going to get the actual workbook?
When I come see you guys in that live class.
Okay, on August 12th.
Yeah, all of it's online. I might actually send it down sooner so you guys can pick them up earlier. I'll probably do
That would
that.
be nice.
And in the live class, we're definitely going to review it and then some, so you can take notes and stuff. Okay. So, but yeah,
If we
12.
could, sorry, I didn't
Go
mean
ahead.
to interrupt. I was
Huh?
gonna say if we could get that earlier, that'd be great. I'm actually gonna be out of town on the 12th.
Oh no! What? Where are you going? How
Yeah,
come you didn't get invited?
I leave on the 10th. I don't get back until that Sunday.
Ah man. All right. Yeah. I'll talk to
Please.
yeah, I'll talk to him and send it down. You got it. Yeah. Yes.
I have a question. It's I tried to register like for the three exams. They show in the website like 350, not 250. And
Wait for my material.
yes, like when I go to
Roll to the
register,
bottom.
yeah, over the bottom, like it show in my like when I open the website, it show 350 for the SIE and 63 and
Oh no no no.
six.
Keep scrolling down.
Okay,
You guys have your own little link there.
okay. I have another question. Like, we gonna
Yeah,
keep a study from the STC, for example, or we gonna be have
you can.
separate
Either
material?
way, you can. My material complements that. I would also recommend using investopedia.com too. Okay,
Okay.
that's a free resource.
But it was
Investopedia.com.
Investo?
Yeah, I in like invest, invest, opedia, investopedia.com. They've got a really good dictionary. They have tutorials if you want a little more insight on how mutual funds work, how annuities work, and things like that. And that's a free resource.
Mhm.
Okay.
But like, we gonna be
I'm
have
also free.
material we gonna study with, like
What's
pretty much.
that?
Like the when we registered and we be with you, like it's gonna be the separate material we gonna study with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I have my own stuff, but I mean, I have no problem with you guys having other sources. My material will complement anything you do, okay, or vice versa.
Okay.
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 And you got to have all the resources because you do need, hearing it said one way is one thing. You don't quite get it, but hearing it another way, it just, oh, okay, now I get it. And you've had this.
Yeah.
You've had some friends where you said something and I don't get it. And then your friend says the exact same thing and they're like, oh, I get it. I'm like, I just said that, right? So yeah, it works that way. So don't hesitate. Okay.
How soon can we get the workbook? Because I'll be going out of town next week.
Wow, everyone's leaving. What the, is it me?
Our
No,
fiscal year just ended. Our fiscal year just ended, so
got it. Yeah,
there's
I'm going to talk to
vacation.
Shilali and I'll get them sent down there. I'm going to print them up. There's a couple
Yeah.
adjustments I want to make on them first, and then I'll print them up and send them down.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
leaving 22nd. I get back also like 29, I believe.
Oh wow. Well, I'm leaving also the 22nd to the 28th, so that's why we don't
Yeah.
have a class that week.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Where are you
perfect.
going? I'm gonna be in Maui. Where are you gonna be?
Yeah, we're
I'm
gonna leave the last week of August. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll be
Okay.
gone.
Oh, you got a council meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're scheduling around that. That I'm aware of. Okay. Not a problem. All right. So yeah, I'll get them sent out. And when, yeah, go to securities.study and then scroll down to the bottom. There's a New York Life link just for you guys. Okay. So it should be $150 is what that one is. Okay.
Is that just for this class or is that for all three?
That's for all three. That's that one price, and that covers all of it. The
All of it.
SIE you're
Okay.
in, the Series 6 and 63. That's all of it.
Okay.
My
Yeah.
last question: till we get the material, we have to do anything till that time, or are we gonna be waiting for the bug?
I
Or
would
what?
recommend if you register for my website, start going through it and start going through the material. Go through the sample test questions because hearing the concepts is one thing, but you got to see how the concept looks like as a test question.
Okay.
Okay. And you'll get double negatives like all of the following are incorrect except. You're like, what?
Okay.
Right? You get the double multiples. The 1, 2, 3, 4. A is 1 and 2. B is 2 and 3. You need to know how to work with those questions, and you need to see the material as it is as a question, and that's what that's about. So it's a good jump start. And by the way, in going through the questions, if you don't get it, the next webinar, ask.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm here to clarify it so you understand it. So if you see it again, oh, that's how it works, and you get to move forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't
Um,
hesitate.
the, the slides for today that you showed us, or this whole webinar, are we able to re-hear it again?
Yeah, I'm recording it. It's still recording right now.
Oh, okay.
Well, the
Are
others will
there,
be envious because they weren't here.
oh, okay.
Okay. And you get to, by giving you this information, you can go back and forth to it. Because a lot
That's
of
fine.
people, repetition's a mother of all learning. And so you can go
Yeah.
back to it. Okay. And if you catch me saying something incorrect, then call me on it. All right. Yeah. Because here and there, I'll throw some stuff just to see if you guys are listening. There's a
But
method to the madness.
I have to admit, Lauren, that I understand. I don't know why some of the terms that you've shared today
Mhm.
make sense to me now. I'm like, wait a minute, that was so easy.
Good. There's
So I'm
more.
Yeah.
understanding. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate
Like
that.
the like he said, the SEC was the dad, and then FINRA was the son. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah. And there's
Makes
more.
sense.
So it'll all
Thank
come
you.
together. All right. Trust the
Thank you.
process, trust yourself, and again, be open and coachable. Okay. All right. So next week we get more into products. Okay. So again, Wednesday, 5 o'clock next week, I'll send the webinar link out. And again, I'll talk to Jalali and get the playbooks. I should have them printed up this weekend. I'll get them in the mail by the beginning of next week. Okay, because they're binders, and yeah, I try and put out a pretty good product for you guys to work with. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? All right. If you do, you guys got my contact information. Don't hesitate to reach out. Okay.
Thank
All right.
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
You too.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. You
Have
too.
a good
Bye,
day.
guys.
Bye.